This segment's going to be on the True North Arrows Carbon Prep and Primer for carbon and aluminum arrows. Okay, we're going to do some aluminum arrows, Easton Legacies. We're going to do the 3Rivers Archery Traditional Only by Easton. And we're going to do the Carbon Express. And we're going to do some gold tips. These were all sent to me by 3Rivers Archery to do this video with. First step is cleaning with the carbon prep True North Arrows puts out. It'll clean the carbon shafts and aluminum shafts before painting, crown dipping. This is a no rinse formula here. You can use it on your hands, no problem. I recommend taking some paper towels, pouring it in, and just basically wiping the shafts a couple of times. Letting it dry before you dip the arrow in the crown dip primer. I'm putting in the silicone plugs, as you can see. Try not to touch with your hands anywhere here in case you've got oil on them. If you do, go back and re-wipe it. That's the key, is keeping this clean and using a lot of that product. So you just want to put the plugs in. I just give it a little tap. Some of these arrow shafts, like the traditional only, they're pretty shiny with the finish they put on them. So even though you've cleaned them, just go ahead and take a 3M pad and do a light scuff with it. Then when you're done with that, take that carbon prep and re-wash it, re-rinse it. That'll clean it right back off. You can see on that clean pad the kind of film that comes off on them. You might want to go ahead and just plan on that step. It's not a bad idea, but it's your choice. When you go to use the crown or the carbon primer, you want to really shake this vigorously. You're gonna have bubbles in it, don't worry about it. It's strictly a bonding primer. If you keep it in your dip tubes, you can run a shaft up and down or shake it in the dip tubes to mix it thoroughly. Okay, I'm going to run a shaft up and down in that tube after I've shaken it real well. Like I said, you're going to get some bubbles on it. Don't worry about that. You'll see the bubbles run off right away. Okay, we're going to do the 4 types of shafts we just shown. First one will be the aluminum. I'm just going to run it down right to the logo there, just so that I'll know what shaft I've got here. And then I just hang them up. Any bubbles will run right off. Here's a gold tip traditional hunter. I always tap down the shaft just a little bit with that silicone plug in there. That way it holds right before I go to dip these. Here's the traditional only that 3Rivers Archery puts out. You can give it a second dip if you choose to, but you have to remember it's just going to run off down to the bottom. All this is a bonding primer. It's not for coverage. And then we've got the Carbon Express Heritage And after we do our shafts up, we will be ready to crown dip. Okay, these have dried about 6 hours. Here's the Easton Legacy aluminum. This is the 3Rivers traditional only. Here's the gold tip traditional and the Carbon Express. Like I said, you can see through that a bit, but that's just a bonding primer. Okay, these shafts that I've done, I have applied 2 coats of the primer to, simply because I wanted a little more hideability. If you get any separation on the first coat, re-wipe it with the carbon prep, and then you can reapply a coat of primer. This shaft here has got just a little bit of a defect in it. The paint will cover that completely. So you're ready for crown dipping now. Decided to do these Carbon Express Heritage in the ivory, vintage ivory it's called. You can kind of see the color difference right there. These carbon shafts, preparation is everything. I'm going to recommend that you scuff them with a 3M pad, of course, on all brands. I would then clean them very well with the carbon prep, which is the no rinse. Let that dry. Go ahead and dip it in the True North Arrows carbon primer. Let that dry 4 to 6 hours. And if you want to really hide these darker shafts, some of them that are really dark, go ahead and put on 2 coats of primer. It's not necessary, but a lot of guys are telling me they would rather do it that way. If you get a little spot where a bubble bursts but it didn't drip down quick enough, take a 3M pad, scuff it off, re-dip it. Then you're ready for crusting, and you can go ahead and clear dip it if you choose to with a satin or a high gloss. The traditional only 3Rivers shafts I'm going to do in the vintage green. Just to show a little color difference over the top of these the white primer. I leave my products, the crown dip paints in the tubes constantly. I just shake them up, let them set a minute. If they get a lot of bubbles on them, go ahead and put a cap full of water over the top. That'll dissipate it, and they run off quite quickly.